Oh, that's nice. It looks wrong here, but when you put it on the painting, you can see the difference in the colour. And what's happening there? Why is this green looking more blue on that painting? Hello everybody, my name is Ian Ellis. This is Great Artist Deal. I'm just going to focus on Monet's palette, one of the early palettes he used. This is from a book called Eyewitness, focusing on Monet, and it was an interesting book because it shows you the results of art, the restorers analysing the colours of use, and it's listed these colours here. The Musée Montmartre Paris were in association with Dorling Kindersley, and all this brilliant book of Monet. You find, and what I've got is a kind of surprising palette. And when I say surprising is because you've got the vermilion red and the red brown ochre, and I can't see any strong vermilion red in the painting. I only assume that what happened is that Monet intended to put a strong colour down and didn't use it, because you can see this, see that colour there. I've got mixed the red ochre using the vermilion with the black, and it gives you the same colour. So I just thought, well, it was a bit, why have both? But I suppose the artist was actually intending to use stronger colour. What I'm going to do now is just try and show how this palette can be used for two colour mixing, but some colours you can see in the painting I don't think you can get with two colour mixing there. There's not enough range of colours. So I'm assuming he's using black. Black's in the painting for some of the colours. I'm going to try and see which colours I can get with just pairs. Starting off with the umbrella. The umbrella colour here, I've got two blues. I've got ultramarine blue, I've got cobalt blue, and viridian green, the next bit, yellow ochre, red ochre, vermilion, that's the red ochre again, mixed with the black, red mixed with the black, and I've got the white. But just one thing about the red ochre. The red ochre used to be a colour that was used many years ago. In fact, right back to Egyptian times. It's for the yellow ochre, red ochre were the first primary colours that artists were using, and there were these two colours that Titian used for his late paintings. He reckoned that he could do a whole painting with lots of colours, greens and reds and purples, if using these two with the black and white. Which is quite, I'll show you that another time. It's quite a lot. You might find a lot on the internet. You might find people showing you this palette. But you can see it's here. So I'm assuming he's using the old master way of mixing for some of these colours. And because I'll be using modern pigments, I'm assuming he's also used two colour mixing for getting some of those colours here, like the umbrella. So I'm going to go for umbrella, just looking at the colour. Again, what I'd be doing is identifying which colour it's closest to, or which colour it's between. It looks to me like it's slightly green-blue. It's kind of green-blue, a bit more green than that. So if it's got more green with it, it's something between the cobalt blue and the viridian green. Could be ultramarine blues, quite close to cobalt blue, could be used that. But if you look at close, I can see bits of, looks like ultramarine blue mixed with the colour when you're looking at really close at this close-up here of the painting. And it looks like an ultramarine blue has been used in the bow tie of the woman across. So there's a difference in that. So perhaps ultramarine blue is used as a pure hue. You find it in the hat as well. So I'm just going to go for cobalt blue with the yellow ochre to try and get this blue here. Using the toilet paper for this. A bit out of hard to find at the moment. Now, just a little bit of ultramarine, sorry, a bit of yellow ochre. And then mixing a tiny bit of that with the cobalt blue. You can see the colour's gone too green because a bit too much cobalt. Sorry, not enough cobalt. I'm just going to get more blue on that. And see if I get close to that colour as I move across. Looks good, just a bit of white. Oh, that's nice, yeah, it looks good. Nice little combination, getting that colour. Now, down to her dress, again, it looks like a neutral grey, but if you're a neutral grey, if you look at the black, if you put black and white together, you see what kind of grey it looks. I've got a bit of red within that, but you can see it's a totally different colour. Looks a bit, the grey looks more purple compared to that. So it's got, when I'm looking at that, it looks like it's slightly got a green bias to it. So well, if you're looking at it here, we've got the viridian green and we've got the reds here, which are complementary to opposite colours. What I'm going to do is just try the red ochre with the viridian green and see if I can get a grey with these two. Now I'm getting a green grey, which is what I want. Then I can use that with the white. Might be too much green. Oh, that's nice. It looks wrong here, but when you put it on the painting, you can see the difference in the colour. And what's happening there? Why is this green looking more blue on that painting? That's the question, isn't it? Why has it changed its colour? This is what's so difficult about painting, especially difficult about colour. As soon as you're surrounding, this looks a totally different colour to that, and that looks pretty spot on for that dress colour. Now, the theory being is that there's lots of orange in that painting. So think like yellow ochre, and what happened, anything that's grey is quite weak, and this goes back to the video I was talking about looking at the effects on your eye. I talk about Vincent van Gogh's painting with cypress trees, and I explain how simultaneous contrast works. And this is the same thing. You see what happens, your eyes instantly creating the after image of that, which is more of a blue. So what it will do, it will shift any other colour, which is quite weak, like again a grey, over towards blue. So it looks more blue than green. So again, you can see that. Well, hopefully you can see that, because it's very difficult seeing the colours, subtle colours like this, even on a TV on a video screen. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. It's got that colour. Now, other colours, you've got these kind of grey ochres in there. Now the grey ochres, the only way of getting the grey ochre, I could use ultramarine blue, see if I get a grey ochre with that. If I just really, almost complementary. So I'm getting this dark yellow like that. Now if I put a lot of white with that, will it bring it back towards this kind of colour I've got in the foreground here? Yeah, that's lovely. Again, that's thrown in with the dress. Also, the colour's almost quite the same tone within the painting. Perhaps a little bit more white needed with that, just to get that to be at the same tone as that, so you get the two working with each other. A lot of theories going around about the idea that if the values are the same, the colours harmonise, and you see that. I think that's very true with those two colours there. Now the chair looks quite similar colour to this. So it's a bit dark, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre again, but darker, but no white with it, hardly any white with it. So bring more ochre, shifting it further over with more ochre. It goes towards moving from going through all the greens to all yellow greens, really going in there. Bit of white with that, just to calm it, just to kill it again. That looks pretty good. This dark brown here, what kind of brown is that? It kind of could be the almost the red and the green. So we've got the red ochre again, using green again as I did for this colour, but then leaving more brown in it. That looks good. They're beautiful colours, aren't they? Yeah, fantastic. Not used black yet. Now let's look over this colour again. It's got a kind of greenish colour to it again. I can assume that the black is used just to really darken things. Look, at the moment it's not used it, has it? I mean, some of the ochres, like I said, I think it's very difficult to get. So I'm going to try and see if we can get the ochre without actually using any black. Some of the face colours, I've got a bit of blue within that already. That looks okay. I can put my white with that. That's quite nice. No black used in that. And again, the slightly darker ochre with the ultramarine blue again for the darkest part of the face, more of the ultramarine blue. More of the yellow ochre. Just a bit more. That looks pretty good, I think. Yeah. Just a little bit of, I just put a tiny bit of the red ochre with that, just to shift it over a bit more, because it's slightly, that's it, just a little bit more, because the colours, that's more like it, a bit more of the ochre in there with it. So you've seen the mix, of the half mix really going on there within that. Now the darkness of that, again, I can use the green and the red, the sky, the beach colour. The beach colour, is that just the same colour I've used for the here? I've used, if we go back the yellow ochre, tiny bit of blue with it, just to make it slightly more yellow. Then just loads of white. Now, I could have used a bit of green with the ochre to do that. I mean, it might be better because it'd be closer, but I think it's so much white in the paint. Now you can see that's looking too orange. Bit of green, like I said earlier, just to shift the colour over towards more of a yellow. And that's this is just brilliant green. If I go back and redo that colour now, and I use Viridian green neatly, no ultramarine blue. I've got a bit of blue in the green already. But what's happening, the ultramarine blues darken the colour too much, so I've got to try and get the ochre more intense. So the closer the colours, the more intense the colours are, is the rule. So I'm just using the tiny bit of green with that to shift the ochre over towards more of a yellow. And then slapping a lot of white with it. Still more green. Just a little bit more green in that. Almost. It's crazy. I'm overdoing the green now. Just bits of, just a slightly bit more ochre in that. Oh, that's nice. That's lovely. It's just moving between the two. So just a bit of our ochre. Just give me that colour. Oh, that's it. That's lovely. And you can see the quality of the colour. When you put it against those, they're just great. I just love this painting. It's just, I love the fact that it's just done so quickly. It looks like it's just so spontaneous where someone just sat there and painted it. Unless he took a black and white photograph of it and cheated, I don't know. I have no idea. But I know he would paint outside and all this. Look at this. This looks like he really has just enjoyed the paint. And he's done this really quickly. For me, that's just someone painting on the spot. He's just very spontaneously doing it. And that's why he's just a great painter. He's just outside painting directly from what he sees, and also being influenced by photography, by the crop. You know, the idea of cropping people was seen as a new thing at the time. You see Edgar Degas using, and Hopper started using that within that. Anyway, let's do a bit of painting, but I won't take too much of your time up, but I'm just going to try and get some of those colours down. Now, he's using a bit of poppy oil, which is a bit, dries quicker than the linseed oil. But I've got some linseed oil here, and what I'm using is just using that with a bit of the paint to make the paint flow a little bit more. No zest it or terps, but just a bit of the oil. and just bringing in the colour for the dress. Tends to like a bit, but his painting style at this stage was a little bit like Monet's type of painting, you know. And Monet would paint, it's quite like lots of paint with big areas of colour. Rather later on, Monet he starts breaking the colours up even more. But there's lots of gesture paint in there. Going for the just using the paint quite dry here. His painting's not. It's not a very big painting. It's about 1.5 foot. His painting's about this big. So he would be using. He can flick the paint around a bit more than I can. Add a bit more space, but it's not that big. The brown down here. Keep changing my brush. And the dark colour, I can use Viridian green. It's more of the Viridian green with the brown. The ground I put down there, you can see it. What I did, I just used white acrylic, mixed yellow ochre with it, and loads of white. That's all I did with all that. So a bit more brown in there with the colour. Perhaps a bit more black, a bit of black in there just to darken it more. I think this is where the black comes into it, it's just to darken things a little bit more. It's not quite dark enough. Also, you can see there's black being used in the hair there. I'll do that in a minute when I've got the rest of the painting in better. What I'm doing, I can get the really dark colours and really light colours in there. I've got there quite quickly, and I'm just trying to. There's a lot of reflection of the light coming back. I'm trying to have a look at it from this angle, but so you can see it. I'm just going to have a go at the small lines of the chair there, where I mixed earlier with the. Yeah, there's a nice little colour there within that. There's in the chair, nice subtle colour. There's bits of ochre thrown in there, quite thick paint. Now the hair, just get a clean brush for the lighter colours on the face, the darker colours. That's right. Should have put this colour down first, really. Making the blacks affecting the colour there, and I've got bits of white in there. Bits of pure ultramarine blue come into that, will help make the difference. Also, I've got the beach colour to draw, to paint. Try and keep my brushes as clean as I can. It's quite similar to the colour I've already got down there, so I'm only just adding thicker paint over the top of the painting. And you get a very light grey in there as well, with the, I'm assuming it's a similar grey to what I've got there a bit earlier. But mixing these two, remember that was just red and green and the red. So I put a lot of grey with that. Sorry, to mix that with my knife. Bits more red with it, just to grey it slightly, and more white still. And a clean brush, throwing in these white bits at the back, in with the paint, flecking the paint on as it's doing that. And there's also some very light areas down here. It looks our hair looks a little bit warmer, but perhaps a little bit more red with it. So it's just staying a white, but it's getting a bit warmer. That's too red. Perhaps using more of a light ochre perhaps would be better. If I just take that away, make a mistake, easy, take it off, and then really go for a light ochre. I'm going to get some more white paint there. Just putting a much lighter ochre within that. So I'm getting that. The clean brush. That's it. These bits of white are quite important. These bits of white appearing here, and the actual green of the paper is the same colour as the dress. I'm just using my fingers, just for speed. And then I'm going to bring a bit more black into those painting, into the hair now, just to get the contrast. Also drawing with a brush. Pass me that brush down there. Drawing with a brush to finally finish the painting off. And just a little sketches. Now again, a bit of linseed oil, bring the black into play, and little bits of black thrown in. And even drawing little bits of the eye. A little bit red on the lip. And the sky as well. Just move that a little bit. The sky, again, I've not mixed the sky yet, just looking at the sky. Gonna go for ultramarine blue and the yellow ochre again. Make it much more grey. Green coming into that as well, making it over a bit more blue. So I'm using a third colour here to get the sky colour in there and get the light in. It's really quite laboured paint on the round the back, give you a bit of bits of ultramarine blue there with it. There's quite a lot of paint, really quite gestured. Give you funny enough, actually the paint's got more at the back. It's got a lot of paint on it. It helps create a lot of space in the painting. And this blue dropping down, and umbrella drops down a bit further there. And I can draw a little bit more for the umbrella, just a little bit of blacks and so we're just sketching over the top. And it's got a little bit of black just at the top. Leaving that light bit by working around it. Little bits of blue at the back, looks quite similar to the blue I've got here, a bit more white with this blue. And then there's little bits of ochre, green ochre, with some of those colours at the back. In the distance, little bits of brown, little bits of people in that, and bits of dark blue for these, just drawing these things. Excuse me, I need a much finer brush than that to do that. And then there's all this stuff with the hat, bits of red and also green. It looks like an ochre mixed with the green, or ochre mixed with the blue to give you this strong different green in there, thrown in there within the hat. Also, there's a really beautiful bit of ultramarine blue just thrown in. The black also is used to bring out some of these colours. Also the a hand. And then there's the umbrella just slightly going down. Just take that away a little bit. And the, oops, green's gone into that. Just trying to smarten this a little bit over here with a stronger colour. And there's a really lovely bit of ultramarine blue thrown in there. I need a really clean brush to do that. Just a little beautiful bit of ultramarine blue. Just a little bit of white with it, just to get the full blue glory of it. Too much white, just picks it in. That brings a bit of colour into that. And those two darker bits for the eye, the hat. You can't really see the top of the hat there. Just see a couple of alright. And just bring a little bit more of a chin in there. Anyway, that'll do. Just to give you an idea, these little studies are really fun to do. I always like doing these little ones, just to get an idea of how the colours work when you put them together and see how we get at the end of it as well. It's quite fun. Anyway, thanks for that, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. What I'm going to be doing in the next palette, I'm going to look at a similar painting to this, but there's a bigger, different range of colours. And also what happens when he stops using the red ochre. As later on in his career, he started avoiding earth colours and black, and then started just focusing on really lots of big palette of pure hues. And that is two-colour mixing in a really big way. And perhaps Monet, I think, is perhaps the greatest colour, one of the colour mixers of two-colour mixing as ever. And so I'm going to really enjoy that myself. Hopefully you'll tune in for that. So thanks very much. Bye, everyone.